Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, and in today's video we are diving into the Hydra to test out a really cool Hydra champion. It's none other than the mythical Hierophant Lazarius. And we want to see what he can do. He's hard to see, he's using perfect veil, he gives it to himself, he's there in the middle of the team at the front. But I think he is well renowned, and in fact this is both his greatest strength and also for Hydra, actually his greatest weakness, yeah, is that he is well renowned as an absolutely top tier arena champion, bringing incredible supporting form in his first form, and then switching into a massive damage dealer with Lockout in form 2. He's super top tier for arena, but he's actually amazing for Hydra as well. And we are going to see that happening here in today's video. And I'll talk about how to gear him. I don't have him in the perfect gear. I'll talk about what is the perfect gear for him. Types of teams you can run him with if you're lucky enough to have him, what he brings to your team, etc., etc. So yeah, without any further ado, let's go. We got a little bit unlucky here with this team. We are able to solo provoke with Krisk. We got a little bit unlucky, maybe with the decreased speed or something. I'm not exactly sure what happened. So cleanse did come through. That will happen very rarely, but we're not going to reset the run at this point. We're happy enough. With this one, I was just targeting heads. It does make a fairly big difference, the ally attack, especially, which will otherwise just hit something random. So you get some extra damage out of that. So we're picking targets, otherwise we're leaving it full auto. And yeah, this gives you an idea for the team. I mean, let's leave this run for another second so you can see them hitting heads and doing some damage here. And yeah, we'll take a look then at his build and we'll hop back into the run. And you can see the sort of, basically the build and what I would change. But this is roughly speaking it. Let's see him do a hit against this head. 1.3 million from Varl. That will ramp up over the course of the fight. You can see, what was it, 130 or 170? Like, not that much. Not that much damage from Lazarius, at least in this form. So let's take a look at him and his build. And yeah, let's break it down. So in Form 1, this is what I just used him in for the most part in Hydra. Let's flip him over to Form 2. I think this is very awkward to use unless you're going to manual the run, because he does so much good stuff in Form 1 that if you let him on auto switch between the forms, you're going to lose a lot of uptime on what he's doing in Form 1, and that could genuinely kill your run. So I think that, if you want to use the second form at all, probably what you'd have to do is manually switch him over to this form when it's safe to do so, but you might not even bother. So in this form, his single target does stack up his attack and can decrease. I don't think this even works too well against the Hydra. It's not super relevant. He can buff up his attack a bit. He has an AoE, ignore shield and increase defense. You're not going to see that in Hydra. Does more damage for each debuff removed. Now, this is a nice thing. If he doesn't cleanse anything, he does 15% more damage for each alive ally. You've got 5. So, I mean, you're getting, what's that, 75% more damage if he doesn't have any debuffs, which is pretty darn great. But that might be a little bit tricky to activate. His A3 is a big hitter. Again, it's ignoring ally protection, strengthen, and shields. You don't have that in Hydra. It will ignore some defense. It steals turn meter, doesn't work against Hydra, but it's just a big single target hitter. And then, the lockout doesn't work against Hydra either, but he does self-buff with increased attack and crit damage, which is going to enable you to hit harder. So this is Form 2. It's very much like there's a bunch of decapitated heads. I guess I'll swap him over for a few turns to squeeze out a bit of extra damage, but honestly, a lot of this form's value comes from, and like he will work even if you don't have increased attack in your team. Well, he'd be the increased attack champ for your team, really, from Form 1. But yeah, he just self-buffing, self-sufficient damage dealer. He's fine, nothing spectacular, but Form 1 is really quite special. Obviously, he's got 25% aura in all battles in both forms, which is super. He's coming in. What's he do that's so good? So number 1, increase attack and strengthen with 20% turn meter fill on a 3-turn cooldown. It can push back enemy turn meter. That doesn't work against Hydra, but nonetheless, this form, I think, in general, is quite like a supercharged Arbiter, I think. But he also brings a lot more utility that lets you fill out multiple team roles. So he's the increased attack champ for your team for any attack-based damage, like we have Varl in our example run. Strengthen is making your team much tankier, and it prevents the weakens from Head of Suffering, which is great. And the turn meter boost, it's supercharged Arbiter, right? It's Arbiters with a little less turn meter, but you get Strengthen instead, which is fine. His A2 then is insane. Nest of Vipers attacks all enemies. Before attacking, block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns and decrease enemy buffs by 2 turns. After attacking, puts block buffs on all enemies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. So he is a 3-turn cooldown block buff champion. For the team we're running here in particular, he's actually replacing Ugo. Ugo was who I used before. Now, Ugo for this team is bringing us, a bit of healing, a cleanse potentially, and obviously the block debuffs. Block buffs. Ugo brings block buffs. So we're getting block buffs from him, and it's on a 3-turn, which is really quite crucial. You want your block buffs to be as consistent as possible, because, look, if you miss that block buffs at a crucial moment, an increased attack, Head of Wrath, can destroy you. A poison cloud can really reduce your damage. It's still going to happen sometimes, but this really, really helps. But yeah, decreasing enemy buffs is great, right? If increased attack goes out, or if a reflect damage goes out, he can really strip those down or just entirely remove them. It's giving your team block debuffs as well. So now you've got increased attack, strengthen, and block debuffs for your team, all with very consistent uptime. Fantastic. Brilliant. That's going to block all the poisons, all the crowd control, the heal reduction. It's really, really nice. And yeah, then his A1 throws out a shield on the ally at the lowest HP, so helps them stay alive. And it's a pretty good shield because it scales off his attack. Then finally, this is one of the nicest things as well. On his passive, number 1, he provides himself with increased accuracy and perfect veil every turn, and he takes less damage for the more attack he has, up to 30%. This is going to mean it makes his stat requirements really, really low, right? Really, really low. His accuracy requirement is, well, a big chunk lower than everyone. Like if you need, 400 accuracy, you can get away with like 260, right? It'd give you an extra 130, so you'd be up to 390, close enough, right? So your accuracy requirement's way lower. Your HP and defense requirements are way lower because he's going to get this damage reduction. So he's just going to be super tanky, even without building him tanky. And the perfect veil makes him tanky as well. The really interesting thing about this, you can and probably should build him to be a mischief tank. It's definitely something you can consider because he's giving himself perfect veil, increased accuracy every turn. If you're running him like we are with an Inquisitor Shamael team where nobody else has veil, if you don't have increased accuracy on your team as well, like he will actually be giving himself every turn these buffs. He'll be very consistently rocking with a lot of buffs, So you can absolutely have him going in as your mischief tank. Build him with enough resistance. Like for example on Nightmare, this is brutal. I think brutal's maybe only 5 or 10 resistance requirement lower. You need like about 500, right? But he can mischief tank for you as well while bringing all this utility. And perhaps my favorite bit about this, at the end of his turn, has a 3-turn cooldown, but still just happens, revives an ally with half HP, turn meter, and perfect veil. This is just fantastic. And again, this just works on auto. So you put all this stuff together, you get yourself a huge amount of defensive buffs for your team. You get a reviver. You get a really tanky champion that can do decent damage and potentially mischief tank. He does so much. He does so much. It's actually genuinely crazy how good of a support he is for Hydra. Great. All this stuff is great. So Nub, what's the problem? Well, like I said, the problem with this champion is his greatest strength. It's also his greatest weakness, at least for Hydra. Again, you can see right there, stuff got stolen, and it did get stolen. This is his problem. This champion is so strong for Arena that you probably really want to build him for Arena. So right here, I've got him built in Stone Skin Lethal. Like this is my Arena build for Form 1. He's like high speed. That's great for Hydra. He's got damage. I mean, that's great for Hydra. But if we're going to keep him in Form 1, you don't even massively need to stack up his damage. But for Arena, for Form 2, you really do. You want him to hit as hard as possible. I only have the 1-star blessing, so his attack is sadly quite low. But man, I tell you, if we had blessings, he'd be absolutely clapping. It'd be great. But yeah, this is like the Arena build. So he's slightly, actually, he's not slightly low on accuracy because for Hydra battles, we're up at 285. We get the bonus. We've got plenty of accuracy for Brutal. But this is the problem. We are going to be indexing into stats that we don't need. And specifically, we're going to be missing stuff we do need. So for Hydra, resistance. I don't have any resistance built on this character because we just go, you locked us out. We live in Stone Skin. We swap over and we nuke your team. So that's a really big problem. Getting the resistance stats on him to mischief tank is great, that's really tough. Like, that just doesn't make sense for Arena because those resistance stats are making him worse for Form 2, right? That's kind of a problem, I think. That's a big problem. Number 2, seeing as we are really focused on Form 1, again, lethal is really good for Form 2. It's not so important for Form 1 really at all, where he's much more of a support. He still does decent damage, but he's more of a support. I think really the ideal set for him, which can give your team a very big damage increase, is Protection, right? Protection is perfect. 9-piece specifically. Another champion where 9-piece Protection makes a huge difference. Number 1, this can protect the buffs. So look, even worst case scenario, let's say you don't have the resistance. He's got a good chance to have protected buffs on himself anyway, so at least Mischief can't steal them. But allies do 5% more damage for each buff placed by the wearer. Remember, he is giving us 1, 2, 3 different buffs. He can give our team a 15% damage boost while also being the buff stripper block buff champion, the reviver, the mischief tank. The guy who's basically keeping us alive. I mean, honestly, you throw in a team with just a leech debuff, and he's going to sustain you through absolutely fine. He's going to keep you going, which is just great. So yeah, I'd be saying 9-piece protection is probably ideal, and you would probably want to, probably still you would build him for damage, because like I said, he gets so many tanky stats for free, and he's so like he's never going to die, right? Against the Hydra, he's never going to die, even building him for damage. So you probably would still build him on like a damage protection set. And that would give you the option to swap over to Form 2 as needed as well. But yeah, it's just a little bit awkward. 9-piece protection is not going to be great for Arena right now. Like, you would much rather have him in the stone skin and whatnot. Luckily, the blessing does carry over. So Lightning Cage, use this to protect his stone skin blessing, right? So he'll be protected from buff strippers, because there are, Galathier, you've got Mikage, etc. There's a lot of good buff strippers at high-end Arena. This is there to protect his stone skin and keep him going, right? So that's kind of important. And that helps you to mischief tank as well in Hydra. Or it makes you more of a mischief target, which might be a bad thing, like it is for me if you don't have enough resistance. Yeah, those would be sort of the considerations that I would have with this champion. But yeah, I think he absolutely fits in really well, really, really well to a lot of different teams. Just he's not going to do sort of insane damage. Like if we skip on, I mean, the nicest thing, the biggest difference between him and the version of this team I ran before with Ugo is that it gives you the safety net for running it on auto, right? Particularly with Varl. Now, I haven't talked about it in this video, but we talked about it in that previous one. When we were running this with Varl before, this team is a pain in the ass, unfortunately, to be consistent, because Varl loves nothing more than smacking a head that has reflect damage with his A3. It's like he's programmed to do it. Like, he will not Calamity Torrent a decapitated head for whatever reason. He'll just smack something with reflect damage and kill himself. And look, if you don't have a reviver, your champ's dead, you're gone. So sort of a problem with any of the attack-based nukers in Hydra is they do tend to all be very squishy, and they can die very easily to reflect damage. And if that happens, you're in trouble. And reflect damage in these really long runs, it can just happen, right? Heads can respawn in a bad way, and it can happen. You get 2 layers of safety with Lazarius. Number 1, you get the buff strip as well as the block debuff. So if they do get reflect damage up, he can strip it off. Great, that's a layer of safety. But then he also brings the revive. So even if somebody does die, he just picks them right back up. And that just works nice and clean on auto. It doesn't delay his other moves. He just keeps doing them. And it's nice, and it's clean, and it's simple. It's the auto friendliness that this champion brings that is just fantastic. And again, the block debuffs protecting you from crowd control from the other heads. It's a lovely combination. Honestly, it really is. We're back. OBS just crashed. Hopefully I remember my train of thought right there. We might have skipped on ahead a little bit here, but I was going to say he works really, really well with, honestly, I think Inquisitor Shamael is a really good pairing, right? He gives that increased attack to Shamael. One slight downside, or one thing you might tweak with your team, is I think having Lazarius in the lead, again, it's not going to give you the maximum damage, but my goodness, is it going to make your team consistent, right? Because Shamael's going to keep boosting his turn meter. You can absolutely put Lazarius elsewhere, right? He's giving you 25% speed, which is quite nice. It's a great aura to have for Hydra, but you could put somebody else, like, for example, a Michinaki in the lead. I think Michinaki is another really good combo with Lazarius. Lazarius doesn't give Michinaki any buffs that he himself particularly needs. But Michinaki does bring the decreased defense, right? So any of these top tier decreased defense champions like Michinaki or Toshiro, etc., could be really strong. I would say with Toshiro or Michinaki, you also have the Lady Mikage combo to be your increased attack champion and, doing the buff stripping and whatnot. You have that option as well, and she's got her A1 synergy. So, that might be a stronger synergy for you. But yeah, you could run in with Lydia, would also be strong. Him plus Lydia plus Shamael. That's a strong combo as well, right? You get the decreased defense weaken, you get increased speed, very consistent strengthens for the team. Yeah, all these things, they're worth considering. There's a lot of good combos, very good combos that you can run with Lazarius. He's very, very strong. One weakness is going to be, I have to restart my game, like my graphics card just freaked out. Probably not good. Probably should upgrade my PC. Oh dear. One slight downside, of course, is going to be, and this is a problem with Ugo. In fact, it's a problem with a lot of the block buff champions, is affinity, right? He can weak hit, and this won't do the move. This is where just the tankiness he provides your team and the protection with the revive that he provides can keep you safe. So if Head of Wrath is Force Affinity, and you miss this on a turn, it's not the end of the world. Again, look, if one of your champions dies, even if a few die, you can get back and revive them. And Perfect Veil gives them protection. It gives them damage reduction, right? So he can protect them and keep them going. And you can still succeed even if stuff goes wrong. 2.6 million there from Varl, which is quite nice. So yeah, it's pretty cool. If we skip on ahead to the end, we did get to the turn limit here on Brutal. And there we go. Believe it or not, this is pretty much exactly the same score as what I got with Ugo on the team instead of Lazarius. Pretty much the same. We can see Lazarius at 53 million. So like he's doing some damage, right? He's doing a lot more damage than like Podrick, for instance. Krisk is getting a lot of damage from Hex. He's probably gonna out damage Krisk. If we took away Krisk's Hex, he'd probably out damage Krisk, to be real. But like Varl, Michinaki's getting damage from Hex as well. Like he's not gonna do, because he's in Form 1, the same damage as a dedicated damage dealer. And like even if we left him in Form 2, he'd still be a good damage dealer, but he would not do damage on the level of like Varl or other, the other top end Hydra champions. Like he's not going to be as strong as like Garol Bloodmane or something, right? He's just not quite that level, but he is a super support, super strong. Yeah, I kept it simple. I didn't flip him over into Form 2. I think once you do flip him over into Form 2, again, you lose the revive, which is a bummer, but you're also losing the block debuffs and the block buffs. You're losing the turn meter, the increased attack strengthen. You're giving up a lot. And definitely, if he's in 9-piece protection, I think the damage gain from swapping him into Form 2 is probably even not worth losing 15% damage from protection set on everybody else in your team. I genuinely think you just run him in Form 1 9-piece protection, and that's going to give you the maximum output. To show you then the build. So we saw his build. His masteries, by the way, are like this. Again, they are very arena focused, right? I mean, for Hydra, you could even just, if you're struggling for stats, you could give him the stat ones if you wanted. Even War Master would be fine. If you just ditch damage, you could just totally have him with War Master. It's going to do a decent chunk of damage. You can build him still for damage with Helm Smasher. I think you got a lot of options, honestly. I don't think the blessings matter too much. Varl, who is hitting really hard, honestly, he's in pretty crappy gear. Like, we can really improve this a lot. He's in 6-piece Merciless right now, but like his crit damage is shocking. 215%. He's got good attack. His speed's okay. He's a bit over on crit rate. But yeah, he's I'm struggling to find the gear for Varl, so this is something that can massively improve in future. Varl could do a lot more damage with better stuff, but that's Varl. I mean, he still hits really hard. He's still great. Michinaki also not in great damage because it's my second Michinaki, and like this is just again where that arena and Hydra tension lies, where these damage dealers, they want the same gear. He's in lethal. That's it, just lethal. So he's coming in 4.7k defense, 249 speed, 256 crit. He's a bit too high in accuracy. We could drop that down for brutal and potentially crank up some of this other stuff, but it's a little bit tricky to make it happen. Honestly, he's got no souls either, which is a bummer, sadly. So Michinaki's damage could totally go higher. But that's him. We had Krisk in that team. Krisk has, again, he's more geared for Nightmare. He's actually overkill, really, because of area bonuses on the resist and accuracy. But good speed is sort of essential, and that's sort of it with Krisk. He is in Cursed to try land that. I have swapped him over since last time we looked to Sniper to make him more reliable at decreased speed on his A1 and at the Cursed set. So this is Krisk. He does have War Master over here. We've got Grand Oak Podrick in that team. Podrick, here he is. He's got War Master. He's in 9-piece protection. I think his perfect set would actually be 4-piece Reflex, 4-piece Merciless for as much cooldown reduction as possible. But unfortunately, I just don't have it. And there's a little bit of counter synergy there as well, where he does bring increased attack for your team, but that's going to be overwritten by Lazarius. So you're going to lose the protection bonus. So there's definitely counter synergy there. Now, he still does give us continuous heal, which is nice for the ally attack. And he's giving us increased speed. We're getting the 2 buffs at least, but this other buff is going to be not so consistent. I just don't have the gear, though. Unfortunately, I don't have the Merciless luck yet, because it's just luck. He's got to get those pieces and hope. Eventually, I hope to switch him over to 4-piece Reflex, 4-piece Merciless. That'd be nice. But for now, he is in protection. It's quite good. He's got good speed. It's fine. Like, more damage focused would be nice as well. Not massive, but would be nice. But yeah, like multiple ally attackers as well with 4-piece Merciless and 4-piece Reflex. That's a really, really dirty synergy. It's really nice. And then Shamael, it's again our second Shamael. So he's 4-star Awaken with Cruelty. He does have Reflex, so he's actually built for solid damage. So how much damage do you do? Like, he's doing decent damage. Not as much as these other guys, but he's doing decent damage. Again, like you can have much stronger Shamaels than this. Like, I think Eherbad has got a crazy one, for instance. My other Shamael's, I think, stronger as well. So, like, there's gear that can be improved to push this, I'd say, a good bit further. Like 9-piece protection Lazarius, 4-piece Reflex, 4-piece Merciless Podrick. Varl, he'd still be in 6-piece Merciless, but with much better stats. Probably Shamael should be in Merciless as well, with better stats. Michinaki can be lethal's fine. Yeah, just better stats on that. Krisk has got the right. I think Michinaki and Krisk are fine set-wise, just better stats on them. And, like, you could definitely push this higher. Like, I think you could definitely hit probably the billion damage with this team. Probably more, honestly. Like, if you push their stats way higher, you could probably do way, way more. Like, I genuinely feel like some of the gear is kind of like Michinaki and Varl are in pretty mediocre gear, honestly. And even Lazarius, for the purposes of Hydra, is in pretty terrible gear. He's in pretty mediocre gear. Like, you could really improve that a ton. But it's just, do you have it? Do you have the gear? Do you have protection accessories? Unfortunately, I don't for lizards, so there's just no way to do it. Not yet. Maybe someday. But then you, again, run into the problem. It's the same problem I've got with Androck. In fact, he's 8-piece protection. It's very sad. But it's the same problem. Both of these champs have a similar problem, which is they're both super for Hydra. They're both super for Arena. Lazarius more so for Arena, obviously. But they need radically different builds for both of those areas. It's a bummer, man. Like, it's a bummer. Like, they both really want that 4-piece stone skin, at least, for Arena. They both really want it, but then they both really want 9-piece protection for Hydra. It's just, you're torn in 2 different directions, and I would probably prioritize Arena first, because, like, I mean, in perspective, for Hydra, for Brutal, you know, like, we to get the top chest, you need 29.4 million. Damn, like, we're getting the top chest. Everything beyond that is just Hydra Clash. So yeah, like, here we go. We're 6th. I mean, we're doing okay. Here we can see another Lazarius team. That's actually pretty cool. In with the Toshiro and the Mikage and Garol. And again, you can see in this one, like, Lazarius, he's clearly just in Form 1 here. Like, Toshiro is going to do a lot more damage. Toshiro is the best damage dealer for Hydra. That is not Trunda. He's second best. So there you go. Like, that's 2.5 billion. That's crazy. And then we've got the Trunda, you know, he's Trunda's Trunda. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So yeah, it was fun experimenting with Lazarius. I think he's really nice. Again, the main benefit, we had the same results as the Ugo team, but the key thing, to reiterate, because I probably didn't make that clear enough, the key difference, Nub, if you had the same result with Lazarius as with Ugo, why would I use him instead of Ugo? Number one, Ugo is in sort of the perfect build for Hydra. Lazarius isn't, so he has the room to grow and to be better. But But number 2 is the consistency factor, right? The consistency factor. That team with Ugo, if you left it on auto, 9 times out of 10, it would not work. You need the oversight. You need to turn people off of auto and stop them attacking when reflect damage goes up. It's a pain in the butt. If anyone dies, you got to either take a massive damage loss or reset. With Lazarius, you can probably just leave it on auto and it's going to work because the tankiness he provides you, the revive, the buff strip, it just makes everything so much more consistent. It makes it way more auto-friendly that you can go in, which is, I think, what a lot of people value, is I can sit down with him on my team for Hydra, go, I want a successful Hydra run, put Lazarius in, and bam, you've got a successful run. Easy. Easy peasy. And if you don't care about Arena, or if he gets power crept sometime, sure, slap him in to a good resistance build. Probably even, he'd be great with Androck. The two together would be nuts. But get both of them into 9-piece protection with enough resistance. Androck gives you increased resistance, yeah? And just let him rip. With enough resistance, he can mischief tank. I guess with Androck, everyone can mischief tank, though. Maybe it's not that important. But, you know, get him with enough resistance, 9-piece protection. He's boosting your team, providing you so much utility. Yeah, he's great. So, Lazarius, is he good for Hydra? Yeah, he's fantastic, actually. He's really, really good. It's just hard to max him out because unless you want to spend 1 million silver swapping him one way and then 1 million silver to swap him back. So, you know, 2 million silver every week to swap him between builds. It's doable, especially with the presets. It's not super tedious. So, I mean, I might consider it. It'll be fun. It'll be fun actually to revisit him whenever I do get Lizardmen accessories. That'd be fun. That'd be fun to see. Like, how are we doing on protection here? Terrible. I've got rings. I need necklace and a banner. This is everything I've got for lizards. I've got 2 rings. I mean, like, it's not great. They're not great. This one's probably the better one. Neither one are great. I'll use it though. But we need, when we get him a 9-piece protection, maybe we'll revisit, swap him over and see what we can do. How about that? But yeah, there we go. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed. I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye.